I'm Angie Hicks, founder of Angi. Housing is done, right? It's like,
yeah,
we
would
didn't
think
know.
that.
And I'm back with Monica Langley of Office Hours Business Edition to talk about the housing market and trends we're seeing on home projects for the summer of 2026.
Angie, let's talk about housing because you're so involved in coming in people's homes.
Yes.
So you have a good outlook for us. Right now, there's slower home growth. Right? Home price growth, sorry, and slightly lower mortgage rates.
Yeah.
How do you see these trends affecting your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we are always watching because, people are always making that decision. Should I move? Should I stay? And, because it changes what they're doing to their house. So if they're getting ready to move, that does create some activity from a home improvement standpoint, but it's not a new kitchen. It's more maybe a fresh coat of paint, some of the more smaller things. Mm-hmm. If they're staying, they might be doing an addition, finishing a basement because they're making their house meet their needs. So, so while we've, the interest rates, while they're kind of moving around a little bit, they're still higher than they were several years ago. And I think there are a lot of people that are in their houses and locked in with that 3.5% mortgage that are like, I'm not
go out
trading
and get a
it.
6%.
I'm
double.
not trading it. In fact, we did a survey and found that people are living in their houses on average 5 years longer than they have than they had expected to do.
Well, that's a big impact
huge
on homeowner behavior.
Yeah, so that just means the inventory of the market becomes less because people aren't moving around, which can make it just harder to break in the market. And that philosophy of like, hey, I want that little starter home, like, if you're going to live there 5 years longer than you expected, your starter home may not be your starter home. It might actually be your,
home for a while.
Home for a while. So kind of location and what it has, and some of those elements become even more important.
What about the impact on Angie with people staying 5 years longer? Does that mean they do more fix-it-up things as opposed to the brand new kitchen? Or do they decide, okay, we got to do a brand new kitchen, we're going to be here longer?
Yeah, I mean, we do find that people are doing home improvement projects, so actually bigger projects like kitchens, bathrooms. Those are the two probably most popular renovation type projects because they need their house to work for them. And, they might be able to go right now and get a home equity line because they've probably got a lot of equity in their house, because if they locked in at that 3% mortgage, housing prices have gone up considerably. They might be able to kind of get some financing for a small portion without really changing the huge dynamic of where their overall cost of carrying that house is.
But we are seeing a K-shaped economy right now. Mm-hmm. We have people that are doing really well.
Yeah.
And people who are having financial distress.
Yeah.
How does that play into who you see as homeowner customers?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about home ownership is it's durable, right? It's not something that's going to change on a whim because the economy shifted a little bit. I mean, people don't just decide to go and move or not. But we are seeing the average age of new homeowners going up. It's gone up considerably over the last few years. So people are potentially.
What is the average?
It's coming in closer to 40 at this point.
To buy your first home.
Yeah, and so if you think about that, and I was, I think I became a homeowner in my 20s, right? So it's
same.
There is a shift here, but it doesn't mean it's not happening. It's shifting when it is, and I think part of that is just the accessibility of the inventory. I mean, you mentioned in your opening that, it's like we do have a housing shortage. New houses haven't kept up with the pace that we really need them to be in order to support the demand in the economy from a housing perspective.
Do you think that homeowners now are more reluctant or more eager to improve their homes? Do you see that affecting their mentality?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be person by person. I think generally speaking, people are right now probably putting off a few projects that they normally would have done because they're like, hey, I'd love to save a few bucks. Gas prices are really high right now. So you do.
Do you see it affecting that immediately?
So we do see that. So we have seen people push things out, but it's not a forever push. I mean, I've got a long history in this industry, right? Yeah. I'm like, so when I compare it back to, the housing crisis in 2008, right? That kind of hit. and we were like, housing is done, right? It's like,
yeah,
we
would
didn't
think
know,
that.
and it was like, it was heading into the winter months, so that's not a big home improvement time. So we were as a business, we were like, I don't really know what this is going to mean for us. But what we found was people, maybe they weren't doing a new landscaping project, but they were still doing all of the more basic things. They were having that furnace tuned up. They were repairing their roof. They were doing more maintenance type things because they didn't want to be surprised. And in an economy where you're like, I'm watching my dollars and I don't want surprise expenses, you tend to do some more of that preventative maintenance to protect that asset. And with the house being your largest asset, you're not just going to let it deteriorate. You're still going to put things into it. You're just going to do much more of the non-discretionary items versus the discretionary.
What insights have you gathered on the housing industry in your time? I mean, is there some new flash in your brain right now of what you have learned with your 30 years of experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's durability. It's like in the fact that it plays such a cornerstone in people's lives. And I think, COVID is a great example. It was like we saw a huge run up of home purchases during COVID when you realize
I bought a home during COVID.
Yeah, like when you realized it was like how central home is to our lives. It was central before COVID, but even after, we're still seeing how central home has remained.
And it's because still there's a lot of people working from home.
There are.
Even though some people like Jamie Dimon says you've got to be in every day.
Yeah.
I saw in the Wall Street Journal last week at least 20% of the people or their days are off out of the office from their home.
Right. So it's interesting because it was, there was a huge run up in home improvement spend too during COVID. And, it was fascinating. It was like swimming pools. The summer of 2020 was the summer of the swimming pool.
Really?
Unfortunately, homeowners didn't understand two things. One, it's not something you can do quickly. And two, there aren't enough pool companies to meet that demand when there's a spike, because it's not an industry that sees a spike like that. But we saw spend go up. It's moderated a bit, but it's still materially higher than what we saw pre-COVID. And people really thought that, like, hey, home improvement will see this run up, but as soon as we can go out to dinner and go on vacation, do all that kind of stuff, it's going to come back down. It actually resulted in almost a reset in kind of how home spending fit inside of their total budget.
If the summer of 2020 was the pool summer, what do you predict for this summer of 26?
I'm going to go air conditioning. This is a summer of air conditioning. I think people are going to take my advice and they are going to get their air conditioner tuned up, because that is the smartest money you will spend, because that's going to show up in your air conditioning bill every single month.
I agree with that potentially, because I had guests over and they're like, your house doesn't cool that quickly.
Right. Exactly.
I'm like, it doesn't bother me because I'm typically cold.
Yeah,
but
my air conditioning was out, so I got mine fixed today. So
that's so funny. Okay, who is driving home spending? Even though you said now they're maybe making their first purchase in their 40s. I mean, do you find that? I don't know, are those millennials?
That's
or
the millennials. It is the millennials. So the millennials are spending the most when we look at it generationally, but we still have the silent generation in homes. Because
Who is
people,
the silent generation?
So people want to age in place. Those are the 80 plus.
Oh,
those are my parents. They're still living in their retirement home 35 years later, and
and they're having to make changes to it.
Yeah.
To make it work for them if they don't want to go to an assisted living facility.
It was like, a year ago, my dad comes to me and he's like, Angie, I want to update the house. I'm like, are you kidding me, Dad? Like, we're really doing this? And so he was like, I want new carpet. I want the house painted, the interior painted. I want new countertops.
But, they also might just need ramps.
Yes.
If they're, using
there's a whole
walkers
industry. Exactly. Yeah, grab bars. So when they were doing some work, when they did that work, we put grab bars by the toilets and the showers. So that it was just like, let's do it now. You may not need it. It's nice to have.
We're dealing with that right now with my 90-year-old mother, because stability changes a lot when you age.
Exactly.
And the fall is often a death knell for an older person.
It's the spiral. It is absolutely the spiral. So and that's part of the pressure. I think the fact that that people are aging in place and choosing to stay in their homes longer is also probably what has pushed the average age of new home ownership up, because if you think about it, that kind of that 2 or 3 bedroom, ranch house that's attractive to the retirement community is also that starter house.
Exactly. What about, where do you, this is going to be the summer of AC, you say, but do you see a particular kind of pro that really excels on Angi? Today I spoke with Hope Plumbing,
right,
Heating and Cooling.
Yes.
Okay, so what other pros do you think will get the most out of Angi right now?
Yeah. So I think, when it comes to, you want a company that is committed to, kind of building out their business. Obviously Angi is a growth engine for your business. You want to make sure that you're kind of prepared for that. Also someone that is focused on making sure they're delivering great work. When it comes down to it, it's the point that what happens inside that house when that job is finished well is what matters. So people that take real pride in their in a good project completed are those that will do really well, because it'll snowball for them, right? It's like they get some leads, they get, they have some good jobs, they get more good reviews, and then all of a sudden, it's becoming a really steady stream for them.
I think you have like a famous Angi Pulse report, Pulse of the Market or something.
Yeah.
In 25, you said people were delaying projects.
Right.
What are you going to be saying for 26? What do you expect to come out?
So I think we're going to see that they did a lot of maintenance stuff. I think maintenance is going to be a common theme, and when we do a retro of 2026, I think it'll tend toward more non-discretionary items. And then, I think, it wouldn't surprise me if people come out and say, what they expected they spent, they might have spent a little less.
Really?
They might. I mean, I think it's still going to be a good year, but I think, net, they might do one less job.
I find that the biggest barrier in some ways to get a contractor is to actually get them. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I have needed something done for a while, like fixing my driveway.
Yes.
And my handyman said, I can't get anybody to your house. Everybody's crazy busy.
Yeah.
So what did I do? I went on Angie's list, and I said, I need my driveway pulled up, repaved, it's cracking, it's sinking, blah, blah. And within 1 minute, you all offered me 2 paving contractors.
Yep.
So I was like, oh my God, there's somebody that may come to my house, and I don't have to wait 6 months again. I've been waiting for months.
Right.
So I found that to be, as a homeowner, a great thing that I didn't have to wait to get this person's recommendation or that person's recommendation. Right. I had an Angie recommendation, and you gave me 2 good contractors. Now, and I like that you had the reviews, because I didn't go with anybody that was under 4.
Right. You're like, I want to make sure. Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You're
Somebody had 3.7. I'm like, not doing it.
I need higher.
Yeah.
And I also, I think one of the things that's kind of fun too is to read kind of how pros respond, because sometimes everybody's going to get a complaint now and then. Is just to see how they handle those complaints, because that'll also show you how it says a lot about the company. So
when I went on Angi, it gave me the option, do you need this done within 2 weeks?
Yeah.
After 2 weeks, or still thinking?
Right.
And all that. So I put in within 2 weeks to try to get an answer.
Yeah, right.
And I got an answer.
Yeah.
But it didn't have to be 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, for some homeowners, my husband and I will sit down and be like, okay, we have to reach out to this person, this person, this person. Sometimes your to-do list might just be to know that you've got someone that's going to come to do it, right? Like, it's your driveway, right? It's like you feel like you've accomplished your task because you're like, I've got someone. I feel good. I'm getting an estimate.
And so I had 2 people estimate.
Yeah.
And I have now picked one. We agreed on it yesterday, and I went with the pro that wasn't the sole proprietor, but he was one of 3 partners.
Yep.
But he had great ideas, not just fix the bad part, but we need to re-level all this.
Right.
And I trusted him because he thought about what would be best for my job, and he gave a competitive price. Now, of course, he added things to it that then I said, I think that's a good idea.
Right.
So
because the driveway lasts long time.
And so I better do it right from the beginning.
Exactly.
And then I found that pros also will, quote, turn on Angie when they want more work. So
Correct.
then Angie over the next couple of weeks would offer a couple more people.
Right. Yeah. So pros are able to turn on Angie so that they can, like, if they're busy or they have a hole in their schedule, they can turn it on and add to it. So, I mean, that's one of the things that makes it work, is that, you know, the people that are on and that you're getting matched to are people that are willing and able.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, do these, the way the pros work, do they pay you a monthly service to be recommended, or do they pay you per opportunity?
They can actually do it either way. So they can do it on each opportunity that they take, or they can, you know, get a little better rate by being kind of always on and just pay a monthly fee in order to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you find is the most popular among your pros?
You know, it varies. Like, you know, so I think about pros, and they're like, some of them might be like, hey, I always service these zip codes and I will always do these tasks. So those are things that I want to have always on, but I might pick up opportunities in adjacent zip codes or adjacent tasks based on my schedule. You know, so they can
Which
customize
makes more
it to
money
them.
for you? The opportunity pricing to the pros, or having that monthly service?
Yeah, I mean, a larger
pros?
portion of our business is actually the kind of the always on. So whether they're doing that monthly or by the lead, they can do two types. But the opportunities is a smaller portion, but, you know, they're going to pay a premium on those because they're kind of choosing them one off, right?
Okay. Now,
They're more a la carte.
I also looked for a pro to replace a double door,
Yeah.
which has all the stuff around it. It's like very big.
Yeah.
So I brought one pro out, and he ultimately gave me a price that was more than I wanted to spend, and it's
Yeah.
not an urgent thing.
Right.
But I said, well, I'll get back to you. And I said, how do you like working with Angie?
Yeah.
And he said, we like it. We like to pay per opportunity. And
Yeah.
so then I flat out said, how much did you pay for this opportunity?
Yeah. Yeah.
$87.
Yeah.
That seemed to me, I don't know, is that reasonable or not?
Yeah, I mean, so we actually do a lot of work to kind of understand, like, okay, what are the odds that, you know, someone actually gets the job, and then kind of work through the math. So we price it so that, you know, they're not going to win every lead.
So
every
they know that.
They know that.
But
And
he told me,
yeah.
I think that he said an opportunity is just going to go to a couple pros, so
Yeah.
he doesn't have the whole.
Right.
Is that true?
Yeah, so in anytime a homeowner comes, we match a max 5 pros to them, but a lot of times it might only be a couple of pros.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about when you all find a pro is not performing and getting bad reviews. What do you do? And what is the penalty box?
Yeah, so the penalty box is actually kind of old school Angie's List. So
Oh, you don't do it
So
anymore?
when we had a magazine, we had a little section called the penalty box. But, you know, the spirit of the penalty box lives on, which is effectively like, look, you know, if you're not treating the customers well and you're not living up to your promises and doing good work, we're going to investigate, and if we have to, we will remove you from the platform. You know, so that is that ongoing watching that we're doing as the reviews come in, and making sure that that pros are delivering the quality of work we would expect.
And do you, when you put them in the, not penalty box,
Yeah.
what do you call it now?
Yeah, so now we might put their account on hold, or we might permanently remove them depending on where it is, where they are.
And if Angie is a significant source of business,
Yeah.
do they ever like come at you and get very upset and try to appeal? What's the
Yeah,
process?
I mean, I've had many conversations with pros when they're not happy with, you know, kind of where they're at. And, you know, but, you know, our view is like, look, you've got to be delivering good work. So when you ask kind of what makes someone successful, like, they fundamentally have to be committed to, you know, kind of customer service and making sure they're delivering a job well done. And if they're not, then we're probably not the place for you.
But you don't make those calls yourself, do you?
No, not anymore.
I mean, I was
used
wondering,
to.
well,
Maybe
people...
that also fell in the list in the early days of things that were intimidating to me, where I was like,
Yeah, I'm
like,
cutting
you know,
you
I've
off,
got a
dude.
22-year-old young lady that's, you know, calling and saying, you're done.
Exactly. Okay, and how do you stay in touch with your pros?
Oh, I love
You
that.
personally.
I personally, exactly. This is a passion for me. So I love technology. But I think there is a place for a human connection, and I think there's a place for a human connection in every business. So I originally started, so I have my own office hours, Monica.
No.
I have my own office hours. I started it years ago. I did it with employees when our company got big enough that I didn't know everybody's name. Anybody could sign, come see me 15 minutes. I did an hour on Fridays. And it was a great way to get connected with the team. It was, it was how you build out your leadership style. Like for me, it was like, I do better one-on-one. So as the business continued to get bigger, I was like, why don't I take those office hours and do that for the pros? So now any pro in the marketplace can sign up and talk to me. I do 15-minute slots. We'll talk about absolutely anything they want to talk about.
Is it one by one pro, or do you have them all?
One-on-one. I do one-on-one. So
how
they get their
often
own
do you?
conversations.
How much time does that take?
It varies. Because we'll put out a promotion for it. So some weeks I might spend a few hours doing it. Some I might only spend 1 hour doing it. I believe kind of having that accessibility really kind of defines a lot as to who we are as an organization. Sometimes a pro might just come on and say, I just wanted to meet you. I didn't think this was real. All the way to like, look, I'm having trouble with my account. I need your help. And, I've got someone with me on those calls, and we'll make sure that we go figure out what's going on to help them with their account. So, and they give us, and that helps us kind of make tweaks to the product.
Is this your pro council? Or
so no, that's two different things. So I also have a pro council. So this is just anybody. Anybody can sign up, and it's great culturally. It's great for the team because they're like, Angie will talk to anybody. Angie will talk to anybody. So, so it's fun. And then we also have a pro council. We've got about 20 people, 20 pros that are on our pro council, and they'll meet with our leadership team, every other month. And, we'll preview ideas that we're working on, products, gain feedback on the industry, things like that. It's just a very collaborative conversation, and it's a great way for us to stay close to the customer.
Speaking of customer, then, when are you going to have office hours for your customers?
For the homeowners, I've done it before. So
for the homeowners, yes.
So yes, I have done that. So in the early days, when I would travel, I would actually invite homeowners, so they were members back then, to coffee. So I would hold a little in-person office hours in coffee shops across the country. The most recently over the holiday season last year, we had a holiday hotline, and I answered that hotline. So if you were like getting ready and stressed out about home projects around the holidays, you could call in, and I would give you some advice.
Well, that's especially true at Thanksgiving or
it's
or the holiday.
Yes.
People want to have everything working, and they may call say, help, I need help fast.
Exactly.
But they could log on and see, or go on.
Yeah. So, so it's interesting. I was talking to a group of executives not that long ago, and we were actually talking about this element of kind of how do you stay close to your customer. And there's always this like, I'm the CEO, I don't have that much time, I'm super busy. It's, I just encourage people to think about like, I started this by doing it for like 1 hour a week. It's like, you've got 1 hour. I'm not asking you to give 10. I'm asking, you probably have 1 hour. So figure out what's authentic for you and what's comfortable for you. But there's opportunity there, whether it's meeting with your frontline teams, whether it's talking to your customers directly. There are just great insights to be gained there when you, when you put on those listening ears and practice that skill.
You started a new podcast yourself, so that's a way for your homeowners to watch you and get familiar with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let's talk about homeowner marketing. Okay. I'm inundated every day with text and emails from my favorite fashion brands. And of course, I always go on.
Right, I want to see what's the latest.
I want to see,
I need a new
do
shirt.
I need that dress? But now that I signed up for Angie, I also get them from Angie. Yeah. So is there an ROI on that? On sending me things?
Yeah. I mean, it's an element of the fact, like if you think about your home, you may only do 6-8 projects a year. right? So it's not something that you're doing all the time.
Oh,
you know,
like
it's not
buying
like
clothes?
it's not like I'm ordering carry out or doing things like that. And you know, like I like to buy clothes more often than 6 times a year.
Exactly.
You know, so it's a way to kind of keep up to date, and also because we cover such a breadth of services. You know, it's like you might have come to us for your driveway, but you hadn't thought about us for your carpet cleaning, but we can help you there too. So it's kind of making sure that, you know, homeowners understand like the breadth of things that we can cover.
Okay, now that I'm getting my emails and text from Angie,
Yeah.
which helps remind me, oh, you need to do this. I got this interesting email.
Yeah.
Okay, it said, you moved in 6 years ago.
Oh yeah. They're like,
And
oh,
your
you know this.
recommended- Look,
Yeah.
and your recommended
Things that might
projects-
be on your to-do list.
Yes, it said
Right.
your recommended projects. There are 8 projects to tackle when you've lived in your home for 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bathroom remodel, no, that was new, redone. Painting, maybe.
Yep.
Driveways.
Well, that's on your
And
list.
that's what I did.
Yes.
So,
yes.
you know, and tree service. Yes, I need that too.
Yes.
So I thought that was like weird, but useful.
Yeah. It's one
I
of those
wasn't
that's like,
offended.
you
At
hadn't thought
first, I
about
was
it.
like, how do they know I moved in 6 years ago?
Yeah.
How do they know this?
Yeah. It's all public information. Yeah.
No, it is. It
Yes,
is. You
yeah.
can look at my
Right.
homeowner record. But
Right.
I thought that was super cool. And it says, book now these things. And then they came up with junk hauling. Oh my gosh, in 6 years,
You got a lot of stuff.
accumulate a lot of junk in
have
your
so much
basement
stuff.
and garage.
Yeah,
So
I've been in my
I need-
house for 20 years. I forgot to move, and I'm like, oh, this is why people move, because there becomes a point where you gotta clean it out.
Angie, because the name of this show is Office Hours Business Edition, I ask every guest, if you could have office hours with anyone, alive, dead, fictional, who would you pick to have
Oh my
office hours with?
gosh. That is a great question. Let me think. I would love to talk to Oprah.
Okay. And why?
Why? I just think she incredible entrepreneur. I love how she built her brand over the years, and I just think it would be fun to just hear her challenges along the way.
And she is an icon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And is there a question that you would really want to ask her, or just like get a feel for how she built the brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is just I am a firm believer in authenticity, and kind of who people see is who you really are. And I would love to see how she dealt with that over, I mean, decades, quite honestly, through her career of just, you know, how she could manage that limelight, you know, kind of versus, you know, kind of her real life and kind of how close they were.
And you are doing that too, right?
Yeah.
You're in the limelight on every commercial,
Yeah.
making yourself available. And then you want a private life too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, you know, it's when I'm at home and I'm like in my own community, it's like people are used to seeing me. So it's less, and you don't notice it as much. I notice it more when I'm like traveling or kind of in a new spot, and I sometimes forget, right? You're kind of like, oh yeah.
Do people ever come and say, I want a selfie with you?
They do.
They do?
Yes, they do. I think, you know, what Bill and I were traveling. I think we were walking through LaGuardia one time, and you know, he loved it. It was like I was walking along and somebody hollered like, "Look, that's Angie!" And he was like a few steps behind me, and he's like, "I'm with her."
But did they come do a selfie with you?
Countless times. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
lots of things. People have been incredibly kind, and it's been a fabulous way to connect, right?
given
And to
that-
hear stories about
Given
what's
that
going
you're
on.
an introvert,
Yeah.
how does that feel to you when people come to you and say, oh, you're Angie, I want a selfie? Did part of you say,
Well, part of me is just like, you want to selfie with me?
really?
But,
Me?
you know, yeah, exactly. But, you know, but again, it's that one-to-one connection. I'm like, you know, I get options
That's
to do
your-
speaking engagements and things like that. And I'm like, do I have to get up in front of that big crowd? I'm like, I prefer that one-on-one engagement.
Great. Thank you.